Hello and welcome to the second of our lockdown level 4 video interviews and discussions. Now, our guest today, who I'm just going to bring into the room, is Anthony Maclean from Boost Auto. Thanks for joining us, Anthony.
Thanks, Richard. Thanks for the invite.
No worries at all. Now, we are sitting here. This is being recorded about just before 2 o'clock on a Friday, so we're all waiting at the moment to see how much longer we're going to be in level 4, certainly for Auckland. Things aren't sounding particularly good. I gather that the cases have now spread to Wellington, which is unfortunate, but New Zealanders seem to be following the rules and a lot of testing's going on out there. But I think that means we are likely, about the time this video goes out, to be hearing that Auckland will be in level 4 for at least a little bit longer, if not more of the country. So that raises a big question about what you should be doing with your website during this time. How is best to communicate with those customers through your website about what is going on and what you can do for them? And that's the kind of thing that was part of the whole strategy and concept what you guys do over at Boost Auto. Is that right, Anthony? Can you tell us about the kind of areas you work in?
Yeah, thanks, Richard. So, look, there are two elements really that we work in. I mean, there's 5 pillars to the business, but there's 2 parts. One's really that interface between sales and marketing, and I'm working at the moment as well with a couple of overseas brands that are looking to come into the market. But obviously, this discussion is really around effective sales and marketing. And I think we've been here before with lockdown, so we have a little bit of a playbook, I think. And hopefully this time we haven't had a whole bunch of emails from brands saying in these uncertain times, stay with us, because I think we've moved on from that. And I think we'll cover some key points shortly that dealers should be looking out for, and distributors as well, manufacturers.
Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, let's start at the early part of the topic we're talking about today. Should dealers by now have tweaked their websites to acknowledge what is going on?
I think they should, and not just their websites, all their social channels. Consumers for new cars certainly communicate through Facebook and through Google. So you need to make sure that that's where customers expect that updated information to be as well. It's not necessarily a case of website first, although we'd like to think that that's the way. But they'll look at all media channels that you've got. So Facebook, Insta, and the website should all have messages on there to say what's going on.
And what kind of information are we talking about conveying? Just opening hours, what the dealership can offer, and what should they be putting on those websites?
I think it's worth bearing in mind this lockdown came in pretty fast. We were at work Tuesday, and then Tuesday evening we weren't ready for going in for work the following day. So you've got customers' cars in the service department. You've got customers waiting and who've been waiting a long time for their new vehicles to pick up. So actually, it's not so much about when we're going to be open, but it should be about communicating. So I think the first point of call would be to make sure you've got those messages on social media. The next thing is really to brief your staff to make sure that they know what their expectations are. So clearly the businesses have got to be closed. There's no car business out there that's an essential service, with the exception of somebody servicing emergency vehicles and maybe carrier vehicles. But even then, they're only going to be open in a very limited way. I think it's important that brands portray themselves in a, I'm going to say, respectful manner. But what I really mean by that is you can't pretend that you're going to be open more than you are, or you can't push the limits, because I don't think people have got a tolerance for that. So you should protect the brand in that sort of operational space. And then you need to be talking to your team about who's on call, basically, in terms of responding to messages on Facebook and Google, and what that expectation is. With chat on websites, people expect to respond straight away. So if you use a third party like Drive Chat or something like that, you need to brief them, or you need to be managing it within the sales team, so that even while they're sitting at home, they can respond. And then I think the other thing is you need to be actively reaching out to customers who perhaps had a delivery due for this week, or perhaps had a delivery due for next week, or they've got a car in the workshop, just to say, look, obviously we're delayed. There's going to be a bit of a backlog now. Which cars are completed, and which cars are prepped, and which cars you're going to have to bump. And there's probably a lump of vehicles that fit in the category of other. So I think you need to be reaching out to customers as well, via online or calling them to keep them informed. But I don't think we need the platitudes that we had last time with, the plethora of emails saying in these uncertain times it's difficult, blah blah blah, because people know what the score is now. They know that lockdown in level 4 means, we're all at home.
Yeah, people are used to it. How, when you are talking to those people about, who may have a car that was due for delivery, or that perhaps you are talking to about a sale, do you need to be cautious about over promising when it comes to when you can deliver? I mean, should salespeople, if they say, if there's on the current Auckland lockdown, there's 4 days to run, should they be indicating they can deliver on the 5th day, or should they be very much caging those answers?
Customers want certainty, and but it doesn't mean that we can give them certainty, but we can sort of provide a framework. So what I mean by that is, we know in our hearts that it's unlikely we're going to come out of lockdown on Monday night or Tuesday morning. We know that that's unlikely, and that it will just take a little bit of while to work through. Cars that were groomed and ready to go for Wednesday morning will still need another groom now, having sat outside for a week. So I think you probably just need to be careful. And I think that once we get the notification that we're coming out of lockdown, that's when the sales teams and after sales teams need to regroup and plan what can go out. So my point about certainty is, I think you need to just help customers understand that they're important, that they're where they are in the queue, without sort of saying, oh, you're 17th in the queue, but that as soon as we're open, we'll have full focus on getting them out. And I think probably it's management's opportunity to get the team rallied around them to maybe just work slightly longer hours. There's going to be a backlog. The interesting thing about the car business right now, before lockdown, is we were incredibly busy. PDs were taking a long time. People have been waiting for new cars for a long time. There's a lot of pent up demand, with supply sort of a little bit behind. And this isn't going to make anything any easier. So I think it's about carefully managing expectations, but making sure there's a human touch in there as well. So maybe something as a message on the website and on the channels we mentioned, and then phone calls, and then just being realistic that if the doors open tomorrow, you're not going to get everything out, and you need to make sure that stuff's regroomed and prepped, and there's paperwork, and maybe some of the finance paperwork needs re-signing and all of that stuff. So you've got to build in a little bit of time. But equally, it's probably wrong to say, I don't know when. And this is the point about customers wanting certainty. You can't just say, I don't know when. You need to have an operational meeting, agree some sort of deadlines and timelines, and then maybe group people together in batches to try and provide that certainty. And I think that's an important sort of component of that.
Now, we're going to discuss lead management more closely on Monday for the listeners with Autoplay, but just wanted to get your take on whether now is the time to be approaching customers. I mean, should in your opinion, the process of following up leads and so forth continue? Is it okay to talk to customers while they are in lockdown?
I think the jury might be split on this. My view is not right now, unless the lead comes in over lockdown. I think this is for anybody out there who's got young kids at home and you're homeschooling them, and your partner's at home, and you've got a couple of kids homeschooling and a couple of partners at home trying to work, you probably don't want the distractions of a sales call. But on the other hand, if you've got a little bit of idle time, and from a customer's point of view, and you're browsing online, you want those queries answered straight away. So that goes back to my point about having the sales team on standby, if you like, or certainly having a roster of who should follow those leads. But I don't think it's the time to be prospecting for business. I think the focus should be on clearing the backlogs when we open, and also making sure that everybody's responsive to inbound queries. That's probably my feeling. Although there is an argument that says, well, people are still at home and their position hasn't fundamentally changed from the week before. So I could see it either way, but I think it probably feels right to wait rather than be pushing at the moment.
And I guess, speaking of pushing, I've heard word in the industry of a lot of dealers going and cancelling some of their marketing efforts, their advertising campaigns, some of their listing enhancements as soon as lockdown began. Do you think that's the right move?
No, and I think even at the very high level at the brand level for distributors and manufacturers, we saw in the first lockdown that actually broadcast media, TV became very cheap. And obviously there's a moment while you regroup and you want to see how long everything's going to go. But I think fortune really does favor the bold. If you went out today, and I haven't checked the rates, but if you went today with a decent budget, you would probably get great value on TV. Certainly, this was the case in the first lockdown, and you would get TV at a discount level that you would have never been able to get during the rest of the year. And as long as the messaging is right, as long as it doesn't rub people's noses into the fact that they can't travel and they're at home, so as long as your messaging is appropriate for the time, then I think there's a great opportunity. And at dealer level, absolutely, you still want the inquiries, and people are still. I think this lockdown is different. We know we've got a little bit more confidence. Last time we were going into the unknown and we didn't know. And I accept that we don't know when this lockdown will be, when it will end. But I think consumers are a little bit more relaxed about that. So they're still going to be looking online, and you still want your search to be at the top of the list. And that's why you want your team on standby for responding to email inquiries, responding to inbound phone calls, of course, hoping that dealerships have redirected their main lines. Of making sure that the online responses are fast. So actually, it's a time to take a good look at what you're doing to make sure that it's adding value, and just look at that cost per lead and cost per acquisition, I think, as well. But certainly, I wouldn't be cancelling any spend right now.
I guess some people seem to forget, if I recall, last time during lockdown, online views of vehicle listings and so forth, and inquiry levels, I think actually went up in a lot of cases, just because people sometimes had not a lot better to do than to sit at their computer and window shop for a car.
I think you're right there. And I think that's a bit like Christmas. Anecdotally, people always assume that Christmas is a dead time for car buying, but that's actually not true. January is always a very big month. December is not the soft month that you'd expect it to be when you look at the data. And in fact, you have a period of time in this lockdown and at Christmas where people are clearly not looking for cars. And then the milestone passes, which is Christmas Day, Boxing Day, and then people are back looking, and they might be on holiday, but on holiday they've got a little bit more time to browse. So I think there are some parallels to lockdown here. You have a couple of days of what the hell's going on, and then you kind of go, oh, we've been here before. We know what the deal is. Look, we don't know how long it'll go for, but I still want to replace my car. We're still not traveling. We've got a bit of money. Cars, all of that stuff still goes on. So I think I think there will be subtle differences this time around to the last time, where there was a little bit more of a pause, and I think we will be business as usual in the background quite quickly, and that means that leads are coming in and they need managing properly. And I don't think people's tolerance of non-response of inquiries is particularly any higher. I think consumers would still expect a response, maybe a little bit slower, but not days slower. An online response needs following up straight away.
Mm-hmm. If we went back to the start and we're talking about the web presence, I mean, do you have a few key items that dealers should either have done or should be making sure they've done now in these first few days of lockdown? I mean, what are your key points people should be looking at?
That's a great question. Actually, we were really caught out by the speed of the lockdown. But I think on Wednesday morning, there should have been a sort of a team huddle, a sales managers meeting saying, right, guys, work out who's online on what days to respond to queries. And by the way, let's just recap what our expectations are. I want a Facebook Messenger response followed up and responded back to the customer within the hour or within 30 minutes, or it should be almost immediate, frankly. So I think there should have been that sort of group huddle in the morning to say what our expectations are and who's doing what, so that everybody's clear. Because I think when you're in a showroom situation and you're a sales exec, you kind of think, oh well, the showroom's closed. What can I do? Well, actually, what you can do is make sure that we're responsive and make sure that customer leads are followed up. thought the other thing that was really great the first time around was that Renault did the virtual showroom where they would show people around cars. Now, I don't know the detail of that. I don't know if it was pre-recorded or whether they said, "Oh, Richard, here's that Renault Zoe you wanted to look at." I'm not sure if it was a live stream event, but that was really, really smart.
I believe they've already reactivated that for this lockdown as well.
Yeah, I thought that was a great piece of work, actually. And so in terms of what you should do, brief the staff, make sure expectations are really, really clear. Make sure that the team can work remotely. Car retail has not changed dramatically in years. It's evolving slowly, but the only real disruptor out there is Tesla in that automotive space in New Zealand at the moment. And clearly Toyota has made a big shift when it went to agency 2 or 3 years back, but there hasn't been massive amounts of innovation. And I think a really great test would be to say, can your sales staff operate effectively from home, or do they need to be attached to some kind of network?
It's probably one of the last sales forces that still has desktop computers.
Absolutely, absolutely. And frankly, are all your team using Autoplay on an app? So is your Facebook Messenger integrated with Autoplay? I'm not sure if it can be, but is it? Is there a work, even if there isn't an automation available, have you got a reasonable workaround for that stuff? So all of that stuff, and in fact, for used car dealers, the same sort of thing. How are you managing leads, and how do you do that sort of sales management of those leads when you get back? So I think all of that stuff's really, really critical, really critical too. So certainly, set expectations up and then operate. And then think about when we come out of level 4, we're not going to go to level 1. We're going to go to level 3 or level 2. So we're still going to have restrictions. How well set up are you as a business to do drop-offs for test drives? It's a business where we still expect people to come into the showroom, to buy a $50,000 product. And I find that quite strange that we haven't done a full evolution of that we still don't operate where the car is dropped off with you, for half a day or frankly for 24 hours. We should be doing that stuff as a matter of course. And I know we can argue that we're too busy and we can't get the staff, but actually, that connectivity, that sort of going the extra mile will make a real difference, particularly given when you look at the stats about how many showroom visits are done per sale, which is less than 2. It's 1.4, I think. If you can disrupt the buying cycle by making sure that your vehicle is one of those less than 2, then you're going to disrupt your sales result as well. So it's time for it's really good thinking time, I think, for dealer principals and group dealer managers to think about how they shake up the market a little bit. Customers have done so much homework.
And I think one of the key things you said there is that we said this in our video yesterday with Greg Epster and the NTA, we're not going back to level 1 from level 4. We're going to go to level 3. So perhaps it's time to start preparing all those. Level 3 is far more intensive for the dealer community than level 4 is. And perhaps it's time to start, preparing those information pages on your website and your listings that explain how sales do occur at level 3 and preparing your staff for that process.
I think that's really important, and it's very easy to think that we're nearly out of level, and be wishful. And obviously, as we're talking now, they're probably making an announcement, but we know it's likely that level 4 will be extended, and then it's likely that level 3 will follow. So even if you haven't got yourself in a position now where you've got all your ducks in a row, it's not too late to have a catch up with the team this afternoon and say, right, guys, just reminding you, here's our expectations, and when we go to level 3, this is what's expected, because that stuff's critical. And the difference will be the teams, the dealerships that are organized, that have got their customer first, that are doing things in a sanitized, safe, socially distanced way, will be more successful than the ones who aren't.
Excellent. Look, thank you so much for joining us today, Anthony. That was a great 20 minutes. Now, don't forget, this video is, if you want to share it out, it's available on YouTube. It's available on LinkedIn. It's also available as a podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. If you are driving around, dropping off computers to staff or something like that, you'd always do that, or while you're washing the dishes or looking after the kids. Please do subscribe, because we've got more coming next week. We have the team from Autoplay on Monday and Trade Me Motors from Tuesday, and there'll be more sessions after that to keep us all going and just putting new ideas out there during this lockdown. So thanks so much for joining us, Anthony. What's the best way people can get in touch with you or see some of your work from Boost Auto?
I would go to boostauto.co.nz, and I do a frequent blog on there as well, which often talks about lead management and I think disruption in the industry as well in terms of retail. There's some quite interesting pieces in there that are hopefully useful, including actually, Richard. Sorry, including a lead management tool that's free, that's for smaller dealers.
Probably a great time to set that up. I have seen that. It's a cool little setup there. And don't forget, you can read Anthony's column also in the Auto Talk magazine, which is out monthly, of course, and is available on our website now if you haven't already seen the latest one. So thank you so much. Subscribe and all that, and we will see you on Monday.
Thank you, Rich.